The massive Galactic Coalition space station loomed ahead, its crystalline spires and gleaming docking rings a testament to advanced alien engineering. Against this backdrop of technological marvel, the HSS Dauntless appeared almost comically outdated. Its hull bore visible welding marks, exposed power conduits, and what looked like hastily patched armor plates. Captain Yunji Park stood on the bridge, her posture perfect despite the barely concealed smirks from the alien traffic controllers who guided them to their berth. Through the view screen, she could see the stark contrast between her vessel and the others docked at the station. Sleek ships of impossibly smooth design filled the primary docking ring, their hulls seeming to capture and reflect the light of nearby stars in ways that defied physics. Coalition control to Earth vessel, the communication channel crackled with poorly hidden amusement. Please proceed to outer docking ring 4. We've cleared the appropriate space for your class of ship. The outer ring was where maintenance vessels and cargo haulers usually docked. Lieutenant Taho Kim, standing at tactical, raised an eyebrow at the slight, but Captain Park merely nodded. Acknowledged. Control. Proceeding to assigned berth. As the Dauntless made its approach, its apparently primitive thrusters coughed and sputtered, releasing visible plasma trails that made several nearby alien vessels adjust their positions as if afraid of contamination. The ship's maneuvering looked clumsy, almost amateur, with small course corrections that seemed to betray an inferior propulsion system. A group of Trilaxian diplomats had gathered at one of the observation lounges, their tall, silvery forms elegant in their flowing robes. They made no attempt to hide their disdain as they watched the human ship's awkward docking procedure. "Look at their propulsion system," one of them sneered, his crystalline voice carrying through the station's communication pickups. "They're still using particle thrusters. How did they even make it this far?" "Perhaps they rode solar winds," another suggested, triggering a wave of tinkling laughter that sounded like breaking glass. "Or maybe they pedaled their way here." Inside the Dauntless, the bridge crew maintained their composure, though more than a few had to suppress smiles. Engineer Yuna Lee made a show of adjusting power levels, causing the ship's external lights to flicker momentarily. This drew another round of derisive comments from their audience. Captain Park shared a knowing glance with Lieutenant Kim. They had spent months preparing for this moment, carefully crafting every detail of their ship's appearance. The exposed hull plates weren't random. They followed a precise pattern that disguised the true nature of what lay beneath. The visible weld lines contained microscopic quantum sensors that were already mapping every vessel within range. Even the supposedly inefficient thrusters were masterpieces of deception, designed to look primitive while gathering detailed data on the station's defensive capabilities. "Docking clamps engaged, Captain," reported Navigator Yun Choi, his fingers dancing across controls that appeared to be outdated touchscreens but were actually advanced holographic interfaces. "All systems nominal." Well, as nominal as they're supposed to look. The station's artificial gravity took hold of the ship, and Captain Park allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Trilaxian diplomats disperse, already dismissing the human vessel as unworthy of further attention. Their reaction confirmed everything Earth's intelligence had predicted about the Coalition's species. They were technologically advanced, yes, but also arrogant, quick to judge, and dangerously prone to underestimating potential rivals. "Begin passive scans," Park ordered quietly. "Let's see what our humble little ship can learn while everyone's busy laughing at us." "Already collecting data, Captain," Lieutenant Kim replied, his console showing readings that would have astonished their observers had they been able to see them. "Their overconfidence is making them careless with their security protocols. We're picking up everything from shield frequencies to weapon specifications." Through the view screen, Park watched as more alien officials gathered to gawk at the human ship. Some were taking what they thought were discreet scans, probably hoping to understand how such an inferior vessel had managed interstellar travel. Little did they know that each scan was being redirected, analyzed, and fed back with carefully crafted false readings. "Meeting party is assembling in the airlock, Captain," reported Communications Officer Doyun Kang. They're sending a junior diplomatic attaché. Apparently, they don't think we rate anyone higher. Perfect, Park responded, straightening her deliberately plain uniform. Let's go show them just how grateful we are for their generous welcome. She turned to her crew, pride evident in her eyes despite her neutral expression. Remember, everyone, we're just simple humans doing our best to join the galactic community. Nothing more. As she headed for the airlock, Park could hear the continuing commentary from various aliens who had gathered to observe the primitive human vessel. Their mockery would make the revelations to come all the more satisfying. But for now, the HSS Dauntless would continue its charade, gathering intelligence with every moment, while appearing to be nothing more than an outdated ship crewed by an unsophisticated species. The first phase of humanity's greatest deception was proceeding exactly as planned. The diplomatic summit dragged into its third day, and the atmosphere in the Coalition's Grand Assembly Hall grew heavier with each passing hour. Captain Park sat at the negotiation table, maintaining perfect composure despite the increasingly hostile glares from the Trilaxian delegation. High Commander Voss, his crystalline form towering over the other representatives, had spent the entire morning making thinly veiled threats wrapped in diplomatic language. The Coalition has standards, Voss stated, his voice resonating through the chamber. We cannot simply allow any species with basic spaceflight capability to join our ranks. There must be certain levels of advancement. Park noticed how the other alien delegations shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some seemed embarrassed by Voss's behavior, while others clearly agreed with his assessment, but were too diplomatic to say so openly. We understand your concerns, Park replied calmly, her voice steady. Earth is willing to demonstrate our capabilities in any reasonable manner you suggest. Voss's crystalline features caught the light as he sneered. You've already demonstrated them quite thoroughly with that vessel you arrived in. Tell me, Captain, do all human ships still use such primitive propulsion systems? Lieutenant Kim, seated beside Park, tensed slightly. 3 days of careful scanning had revealed that the Trilaxians were positioning their warships throughout the sector. Each diplomatic insult seemed timed to coincide with another ship taking up a strategic position. Our technology serves our needs, Park responded diplomatically, though she knew what was coming. The Trilaxians had grown frustrated with their inability to get accurate scans of the Dauntless, despite its apparently primitive nature. Serves your needs. Voss slammed his crystalline hand on the table, causing several delegates to jump. Your species barely understands basic space travel. You come here in that primitive vessel, expecting to be treated as equals. The assembly hall erupted into chaos. Several delegations began shouting, some defending the humans, others supporting Voss's position. Through it all, Park and her team remained seated, seemingly cowed by the display of alien superiority. This session is concluded, Voss declared, rising to his full height. The Trilaxian Empire cannot support Earth's petition for Coalition membership. We suggest you return to your system and contact us again when you've advanced beyond the Stone Age. As the human delegation made their way back to the Dauntless, emergency alerts began flashing throughout the station. 3 Trilaxian warships had broken formation and were moving into attack positions. Right on schedule, Lieutenant Kim muttered as they hurried through the corridors. Station personnel and other aliens pressed themselves against walls to avoid contact with the primitive humans, as if technological inferiority might be contagious. Inside the Dauntless, the crew worked with practiced efficiency, though their movements still appeared clumsy to any watching aliens. Engineer Lee made a show of frantically trying to boost power to their outdated engines. Trilaxian warships closing, reported Navigator Choi. The Crystalline, the Skyforge, and the Stellar Blade, all Apex-class destroyers. The Trilaxian vessels were truly impressive sights. Their crystalline hulls caught and amplified starlight, making them seem to glow from within. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of the Dauntless, their weapon ports gleaming with barely contained energy. Coalition Control is ordering us to remain docked. Communications Officer Kang announced, his fingers dancing across his console. They claim there's a security concern they need to investigate. How convenient, Park replied dryly. Disengage docking clamps. Let's give them what they're expecting. For now. The Dauntless pulled away from the station with apparent difficulty, its thrusters sputtering and whining. Several nearby ships quickly moved aside, their captains clearly worried about the human vessel's apparent lack of control. Incoming transmission from the crystalline, Kang reported. High Commander Voss himself. Voss's face filled the main screen, his crystalline features arranged in an expression of smug superiority. Captain Park, you seem to be having trouble with your vessel. Perhaps you should allow us to assist you. The 3 Trilaxian warships moved into a triangle formation around the Dauntless, their weapon ports glowing with increasing intensity. To anyone watching, it looked like a pack of wolves surrounding an injured deer. Our vessel is functioning within normal parameters, Park responded, allowing a hint of fear to enter her voice. We request safe passage back to Earth space. I'm afraid we can't allow that, Voss replied. Your presence here has revealed much about humanity's true nature. We cannot risk you developing further without proper supervision. As the Trilaxian ships tightened their formation, Park exchanged glances with her bridge crew. Each officer nodded slightly, confirming their readiness. The Trilaxians had played directly into their hands, letting their arrogance blind them to the fact that they weren't the hunters in this scenario. They were the prey. Last warning, Captain Park, Voss declared. Power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate the true gap between our civilizations. Park's finger hovered over a small, seemingly decorative button on her chair's armrest. Oh, High Commander, she said softly, though her words didn't transmit to the Trilaxian vessels. You have no idea how much we're looking forward to that demonstration. The Trilaxian warship's weapon ports blazed with blinding light as they unleashed their first volley. Streams of crystalline energy, powerful enough to shatter a small moon, converged on the seemingly helpless human vessel. The station's observation decks were packed with spectators, many recording what they expected to be a brief but spectacular display of Trilaxian superiority. High Commander Voss stood on the bridge of the crystalline, a satisfied smile playing across his faceted features. Full power to forward batteries, he ordered. Let's make this quick and clean. The energy beams struck the Dauntless's hull, and something impossible happened. Instead of vaporizing the primitive vessel, the beams seemed to pass straight through it. The crude hull plating rippled like water, absorbing and dispersing the attacks as if they were nothing more than gentle rain. Impossible, Voss whispered, his crystalline form losing some of its luster as his tactical officer reported 0 damage to the human vessel. Check your readings. All batteries, fire again. The second volley produced the same result. The Dauntless's hull continued to ripple and flow, its supposedly primitive armor plating revealing itself to be something far more advanced. What had appeared to be exposed weld lines now glowed with an inner light, forming complex patterns across the ship's surface. Sir, the tactical officer's voice cracked. Their hull. It's not metal at all. Our sensors can't even identify the material. The readings keep changing. Inside the Dauntless, Captain Park sat calmly in her command chair as energy beams dissipated harmlessly against their quantum phase shields. The bridge crew worked their stations with practiced efficiency, their earlier show of clumsiness completely gone. Shield absorption rate at optimal levels, reported Engineer Lee. Their weapons are actually charging our secondary power systems. Very efficient of them. Lieutenant Kim allowed himself a small smile as he monitored the tactical display. The Trilaxians are attempting to adjust their weapon frequencies. Should we let them waste more energy, Captain? I think they've made their point, Park replied. She pressed the previously decorative button on her armrest, initiating the first stage of the Dauntless's transformation. Open a channel to all Trilaxian vessels. The communication screen lit up with Voss's face, his crystalline features now showing clear signs of stress. Before he could speak, Park's calm voice filled the channel. Perhaps we should discuss the difference between appearance and reality, High Commander. As she spoke, the Dauntless began to change. The primitive hull plating flowed like liquid metal, revealing layers of technology far beyond anything the Coalition had seen. What had appeared to be simple armor transformed into an intricate network of quantum field generators and energy absorption matrices. "What are you?" Voss demanded, his voice losing its earlier arrogance. "This is impossible. Your ship, your technology, is exactly what we chose to show you," Park finished for him. "You saw what you expected to see, Commander. A primitive vessel from a primitive species. You never questioned why a supposedly inferior ship could make it to your station, or why we seemed so unconcerned by your threats." The Dauntless's transformation continued, each revealed system more advanced than the last. The exposed power conduits that had drawn so much mockery now pulsed with controlled quantum energy. The crude thrusters reshaped themselves into sophisticated gravitational drive nodes. On the station, the aliens who had gathered to watch the human vessel's destruction stood in stunned silence. The Trilaxian warships held their positions, their weapon ports still glowing but no longer firing. "Your next decision is very important, High Commander," Park continued, her voice still calm but now carrying an edge of authority. "You can either stand down your weapons and return to diplomatic channels, or you can continue this attack and learn exactly how much more of our technology remains hidden." Voss's tactical officer leaned in to whisper something, his crystalline face showing clear signs of panic. The sensors were now picking up energy readings from the Dauntless that shouldn't have been possible in a ship that size. "This was a test," Park explained, "one that your people failed rather spectacularly. Earth needed to know how the Coalition would treat those they perceived as weaker. Your response has been informative." The Dauntless hung in space, its true nature now partially revealed, surrounded by 3 Trilaxian warships that suddenly seemed far less impressive. The gathered audience on the station watched in silence as the balance of power shifted dramatically before their eyes. "Now then," Park said, settling back in her chair, "shall we return to those diplomatic discussions? I believe we have some new topics to cover." The silence of space was broken by the hum of awakening systems as the Dauntless began its true transformation. What had started with defensive displays now evolved into something far more dramatic. The outer hull, which had drawn so much ridicule, began to shift and flow like liquid mercury, each plate reforming into its actual configuration. Lieutenant Taho Kim worked at his console with practiced precision, his fingers dancing across surfaces that no longer pretended to be primitive touchscreens. Initial transformation sequence engaged, Captain. Primary systems coming online. The exposed weld lines that had marked the ship's hull now pulsed with brilliant energy, revealing themselves as an interconnected network of quantum field generators, each one activated in sequence, creating a web of power that enveloped the vessel in a shifting matrix of light. From the Trilaxian ships, the sight was mesmerizing. The supposedly primitive human vessel rippled and flowed, its entire structure seeming to defy the laws of physics. The particle thrusters that had drawn such mockery transformed into advanced gravitational manipulators, their true purpose finally revealed. "All masks disengaged, Captain," Kim reported, his voice steady despite the excitement of the moment. "The Dauntless is ready." Inside the ship, hidden compartments opened to reveal banks of advanced technology. Walls shifted, corridors realigned, and what had appeared to be a cramped, outdated vessel expanded into its true form. The bridge itself transformed around the crew, holographic displays blooming to life as false panels slid away. "By the Crystal Throne," High Commander Voss whispered, watching from his ship as layers of deception fell away from the Dauntless. "What manner of technology is this?" Captain Park stood from her command chair, which had also transformed, now floating slightly above the deck on a cushion of gravitational force. "This, Commander, is what happens when a species learns to look beyond the surface of things." The Dauntless's hull continued its metamorphosis. Sections that had appeared to be hastily patched armor plating revealed themselves as drone launch bays. The crude external sensors bloomed into arrays of quantum scanning equipment that made the Tralaxian ship's own systems look primitive in comparison. Their power readings are off the scale, a Tralaxian officer reported, his crystalline voice cracking with stress. The energy signature. It's like nothing in our database. Engineer Lee's voice came from her station, now a floating array of holographic controls. Quantum core stabilized, Captain. All systems showing green. We can proceed with full capability demonstration whenever you're ready. The transformation reached its peak as the last traces of the Dauntless's false exterior fell away. The ship that remained bore little resemblance to the primitive vessel that had arrived at the station. Its hull gleamed with an inner light, smooth curves and elegant lines replacing the deliberately crude construction. Coalition Station, this is Captain Park. She broadcast on all frequencies. As you can see, we've decided to dispense with pretense. The Dauntless is now in its true configuration. I suggest everyone maintain a safe distance as we calibrate our systems. The station's response was chaos. Dozens of ships began emergency departure procedures, their captains suddenly unsure about being anywhere near the human vessel. The Tralaxian warships held their positions, but their weapon ports had gone dark. Fascinating, isn't it? Park addressed Voss directly. How quickly superiority turns to uncertainty when appearances change. Would you like to see what else we've been hiding, Commander? The Dauntless's weapon systems emerged from their concealment, but they looked nothing like conventional arms. Instead, points of light appeared around the ship's hull, each one a contained singularity ready to be deployed. Your technology, Voss managed to say, it shouldn't be possible. Your species is too young, too new to space travel. Age doesn't always equal advancement. Commander, Park replied. While your people were perfecting your crystalline ships, we were learning to hide our true nature. Sometimes the best way to advance is to let others think you haven't. Lieutenant Kim's console flashed with new information. Final systems check complete, Captain. The Dauntless is at full combat readiness for the first time since we left Earth space. Park nodded, her expression serious as she surveyed her transformed bridge. The time for deception was over. Now they would show the Coalition exactly what humanity could do when pushed too far. Log entry, she said clearly. The mask is off. Let's show them what a human warship can really do. A pin-drop silence fell over the Coalition space station as Captain Park gave her first real combat order. Weapons Officer Yoon, show them what a dance really looks like. In the newly revealed combat center of the Dauntless, Weapons Officer Minji Yoon's hands moved across her quantum interface with fluid precision. The ship responded instantly, its movements defying everything the Coalition thought they knew about space combat. The Dauntless seemed to split into multiple images of itself, each one as solid and real as the original. The Tralaxian ships fired frantically at these apparitions, their crystal energy weapons passing harmlessly through some while others absorbed and redirected the attacks. Quantum phase drive operating at peak efficiency, reported Engineer Lee. We can maintain multiple spatial positions for as long as needed. The human vessel moved with impossible grace, as if space itself was bending to accommodate its dance. One moment it was in front of the crystalline. The next it had somehow appeared behind the stellar blade, all while maintaining its phantom images throughout the battlefield. High Commander Voss barked orders on his bridge, his crystalline form clouding with stress. Target the real ship. Ignore the duplicates. We can't tell which one is real, his tactical officer replied, voice shaking. They're all giving off identical energy signatures. This shouldn't be possible. In the Dauntless's combat center, Minji Yoon orchestrated her symphony of advanced technology. Each movement of her hands triggered responses that made their ship seem to bend the laws of physics. The holographic displays around her showed the positions of all three Tralaxian vessels, their movements becoming increasingly desperate. The Skyforge is attempting to launch fighters, Lieutenant Kim reported, almost sounding bored. Should we let them, Captain? Let them come, Park replied, watching as crystal fighters poured from the Tralaxian vessel. Officer Yoon, please educate them on proper space combat. Yoon's fingers danced across her controls, and the space around the Dauntless lit up with quantum field manipulators. As the crystal fighters approached, they found themselves caught in a web of altered physics. Their own momentum turned against them, sending them spinning in elaborate patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. Not a single fighter has managed to get within weapons range, Yoon reported, her voice calm despite the complexity of her task. Their attack patterns are predictable. They rely too much on their technology's raw power. Engineer Lee's voice came from her station, now a floating array of holographic controls. Quantum core stabilized, Captain. All systems showing green. We can proceed with full capability demonstration whenever you're ready. The transformation reached its peak as the last traces of the Dauntless's false exterior fell away. The ship that remained bore little resemblance to the primitive vessel that had arrived at the station. Its hull gleamed with an inner light, smooth curves and elegant lines replacing the deliberately crude construction. Coalition Station, this is Captain Park. She broadcast on all frequencies. As you can see, we've decided to dispense with pretense. The Dauntless is now in its true configuration. I suggest everyone maintain a safe distance as we calibrate our systems. The station's response was chaos. Dozens of ships began emergency departure procedures, their captains suddenly unsure about being anywhere near the human vessel. The Trilaxian warships held their positions, but their weapon ports had gone dark. Fascinating, isn't it? Park addressed Voss directly. How quickly superiority turns to uncertainty when appearances change. Would you like to see what else we've been hiding, Commander? The Dauntless's weapon systems emerged from their concealment, but they looked nothing like conventional arms. Instead, points of light appeared around the ship's hull, each one a contained singularity ready to be deployed. Your technology, Voss managed to say, it shouldn't be possible. Your species is too young, too new to space travel. Age doesn't always equal advancement, Commander, Park replied. While your people were perfecting your crystalline ships, we were learning to hide our true nature. Sometimes the best way to advance is to let others think you haven't. Lieutenant Kim's console flashed with new information. Final systems check complete, Captain. The Dauntless is at full combat readiness for the first time since we left Earth space. Park nodded, her expression serious as she surveyed her transformed bridge. The time for deception was over. Now they would show the Coalition exactly what humanity could do when pushed too far. Log entry, she said clearly. The mask is off. Let's show them what a human warship can really do. A pin-drop silence fell over the Coalition space station as Captain Park gave her first real combat order. Weapons Officer Yoon, show them what a dance really looks like. In the newly revealed combat center of the Dauntless, Weapons Officer Minji Yoon's hands moved across her quantum interface with fluid precision. The ship responded instantly, its movements defying everything the Coalition thought they knew about space combat. The Dauntless seemed to split into multiple images of itself, each one as solid and real as the original. The Trilaxian ships fired frantically at these apparitions, their crystal energy weapons passing harmlessly through some while others absorbed and redirected the attacks. Quantum phase drive operating at peak efficiency, reported Engineer Lee. We can maintain multiple spatial positions for as long as needed. The human vessel moved with impossible grace, as if space itself was bending to accommodate its dance. One moment it was in front of the crystalline. The next it had somehow appeared behind the stellar blade, all while maintaining its phantom images throughout the battlefield. High Commander Voss barked orders on his bridge, his crystalline form clouding with stress. Target the real ship. Ignore the duplicates. We can't tell which one is real, his tactical officer replied, voice shaking. They're all giving off identical energy signatures. This shouldn't be possible. In the Dauntless's combat center, Minji Yoon orchestrated her symphony of advanced technology. Each movement of her hands triggered responses that made their ship seem to bend the laws of physics. The holographic displays around her showed the positions of all three Trilaxian vessels, their movements becoming increasingly desperate. The Skyforge is attempting to launch fighters, Lieutenant Kim reported, almost sounding bored. Should we let them, Captain? Let them come, Park replied, watching as crystal fighters poured from the Tralaxian vessel. Officer Yoon, please educate them on proper space combat. Yoon's fingers danced across her controls, and the space around the Dauntless lit up with quantum field manipulators. As the crystal fighters approached, they found themselves caught in a web of altered physics. Their own momentum turned against them, sending them spinning in elaborate patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. Not a single fighter has managed to get within weapons range, Yoon reported, her voice calm despite the complexity of her task. Their attack patterns are predictable. They rely too much on their technology's raw power. The Dauntless continued its impossible maneuvers, appearing simultaneously at dozens of points in space. Each image was capable of absorbing and redirecting energy, creating a maze of potential targets that frustrated every Tralaxian attempt at offensive action. Their shield frequencies are in total disarray, Engineer Lee noted. They keep trying to adapt to our phantom signatures. At this rate, they'll burn out their own defense systems. Captain Park stood from her command chair, watching the dance unfold on the main viewport. The Tralaxian ships, for all their apparent superiority, found themselves unable to land a single hit. Their crystalline hulls, once gleaming with confidence, now showed signs of stress from their own redirected weapon fire. Coalition Station is requesting information about our capabilities, Communications Officer Kang reported, amusement clear in his voice. Several member species are filing formal protests about the Tralaxian aggression. The dance continued as Yoon introduced new elements to her combat symphony. The Dauntless's phantom images began moving in intricate patterns, creating geometric shapes that trapped the Tralaxian vessels in a constantly shifting maze. Each attempt to escape led them exactly where Yoon wanted them. The Stellar Blade's weapons are overheating, Kim reported. They can't maintain this level of continuous fire. The Skyforge has lost half its fighter complement to their own redirected energy weapons. From the station's observation decks, the battle looked like an elaborate light show. The Dauntless and its images wove between streams of crystal energy, each movement precisely calculated to demonstrate complete dominance without causing actual harm. Signal from the crystalline, Kang announced. High Commander Voss is requesting a ceasefire. Park smiled slightly. Officer Yoon, you may conclude your demonstration. I believe they've seen enough of what we can do without actually seeing everything we can do. The phantom images of the Dauntless began to fade, merging back into a single vessel that took position directly between the three Tralaxian warships. Its hull pulsed with contained power, a reminder that they had yet to see its actual offensive capabilities. To think, Park said quietly, they believed we were primitive because we chose to appear so. Sometimes the greatest power lies in knowing when not to show your strength. The Dauntless hung in space, its true form now a testament to human ingenuity and the folly of judging by appearances. Around it, the Tralaxian ships powered down their weapons, their crews finally understanding that they had gravely underestimated their supposed inferiors. A deafening silence filled the command channels as High Commander Voss's crystalline form appeared on the Dauntless's main view screen. His once proud bearing was gone, replaced by a posture that spoke of dawning comprehension and barely concealed fear. Your deception, it was perfect, Voss said, his voice trembling. We never suspected, never even considered the possibility. Captain Park stood before the screen, her transformed bridge now gleaming with previously hidden technology. The deception was necessary, she replied calmly. We needed to know who would judge us by our appearance alone. The Dauntless is one of many such ships. We believe in peace through strength, and strength through wisdom. As if to emphasize her words, signals began flooding in from across coalition space. Similar primitive human vessels, stationed throughout their territory, were simultaneously revealing their true nature. Each transformation sparked new waves of panic among the coalition species. Captain, Communications Officer Kang reported, barely suppressing a smile. "We're receiving confirmations. The HSS Vigilant near the Centauri trade routes, the HSS Pioneer in the Orient sector, and the HSS Guardian at the Pleiades checkpoint all have completed their revelations." The Coalition's central command erupted into chaos. Emergency signals blazed across all frequencies as reports poured in of human ships transforming throughout their space. What they had dismissed as a scattered presence of primitive vessels now revealed itself as a carefully positioned network of advanced warships. "How many?" Voss asked, his crystalline features clouded with concern. "How many of your ships are in our space?" "Enough," Park replied simply. "Enough to demonstrate that humanity could have struck at any time, yet chose patience instead. We came seeking peaceful cooperation, Commander." The deception was merely to identify those who would be true allies. Lieutenant Kim's console lit up with incoming data. "The Arcturus sector is reporting full transformation of the HSS Intrepid. The Vega station has confirmed the HS Defiance reveal. Coalition military commands across 3 sectors have stood down their forces." The 3 Trilaxian warships hung motionless in space, their once impressive weapons now powered down, their crews watching in stunned silence as more reports flooded in. What had seemed like a simple show of force against a primitive species had unveiled a massive strategic operation. "Your people were so convinced of their superiority," Park continued, addressing Voss directly. "You'd never questioned why a species capable of interstellar travel would use such apparently primitive technology. You saw what you expected to see, and that was your first mistake." The station's diplomatic chambers were in an uproar. Representatives from dozens of species argued frantically about the implications of this revelation. Some demanded immediate military action, while others called for emergency peace negotiations. "We've received word from Earth Command," Kang announced. "Operation Humble Echo is complete. All ships have successfully revealed their true nature. The Coalition Security Council is requesting an emergency session." Voss's image flickered as he received reports from his own command. His crystalline form seemed to have lost its luster, the proud shine replaced by a dull acceptance of reality. "Your entire diplomatic mission. It was all part of this plan." "Every moment," Park confirmed. "Every insult we accepted, every mockery we endured, all to understand who would be worthy of true alliance. Those who showed kindness to what they thought was a weaker species have proven themselves. Those who didn't." She let the implication hang in the air. Engineer Lee's voice came from her station. "Captain, we're receiving requests from multiple Coalition species. They're asking for peaceful contact, separate from the Trilaxian diplomatic channels." "Of course they are," Park replied softly. "Nothing motivates peaceful dialogue quite like the realization that your assumptions were completely wrong." The Dauntless hung in space, its true form now a beacon of human technological achievement. Around it, the Coalition's power structure was realigning itself, adapting to the reality that they had badly underestimated humanity's capabilities and wisdom. "What happens now?" Voss asked, his voice heavy with the weight of understanding. "Now," Park answered, "we begin real negotiations, not as superiors and inferiors, but as equals. The deception is over, Commander. The question is, are you ready for honest dialogue?" The answer would shake the future of human coalition relations, but one thing was already clear. No one would ever again mistake human technology for primitive or human patience for weakness. One standard month after the revelation that shook the Coalition, the Grand Council chamber presented a very different scene. The tiered seats, once filled with dismissive sneers and whispered mockery, now held attentive faces from dozens of species. Where before there had been derision, now there was respect. Captain Park stood at the center of the chamber, her uniform no longer deliberately plain but bearing the true insignia of Earth's fleet. Through the chamber's vast windows, multiple human ships could be seen in their actual forms, their advanced designs now displayed proudly alongside Coalition vessels. The Dauntless hung in space nearest to the station, joined by its sister ships, the Vigilant, the Pioneer, and the Guardian. Their hulls gleamed with barely contained power, a constant reminder of humanity's hidden strength. What had once appeared as a scattered collection of primitive vessels was now revealed as a coordinated fleet of advanced warships. "We come seeking genuine partnership," Park announced, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed chamber. "Not dominance, not submission, but mutual respect. We chose to appear weak because we wanted to know who would be true allies and who would be opportunists." The coalition leaders, representing hundreds of worlds, listened intently. High Commander Voss sat among them, his crystalline form dulled by the events of the past month. The Trilaxian Empire's influence had waned considerably since the revelation of human capabilities. "Our deception served multiple purposes," Park continued. "Yes, we gathered intelligence. Yes, we positioned our ships strategically. But most importantly, we learned which among you could see past surface appearances to recognize potential allies." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, remembering their own dismissive treatment of what they had thought was a primitive species. Others sat straighter, proud that they had shown kindness even to seemingly lesser beings. "The past month has brought many changes," Park observed. "New trade agreements have been proposed. Cultural exchanges have begun. Military cooperation is under discussion, all because you now know our true capabilities." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But ask yourselves, has humanity actually changed? Are we any different from the species that arrived in seemingly primitive ships? Our technology was always advanced. Our intentions were always peaceful. The only thing that changed was your perception. In the space around the station, the human ships performed a synchronized maneuver that would have been impossible for truly primitive vessels. The display served as a subtle reminder of their capabilities while demonstrating perfect control. Some have asked why we maintained our deception for so long." Park addressed the unspoken question. "The answer is simple. True allies are those who offer friendship to the weak, not just the strong." The chamber remained silent as the coalition leaders absorbed her words. Many nodded in understanding, finally grasping the full scope of humanity's wisdom. "Moving forward," Park concluded, "we offer our technology, our knowledge, and our friendship to those who have proven themselves worthy of trust. The era of deception is over. Now begins an age of genuine cooperation." As she finished speaking, the human ships outside activated their quantum field generators in sequence, creating a spectacular display of light and energy that reflected off the station's crystalline surfaces. It was both a celebration and a reminder. Beauty and power combined in perfect balance. The Coalition Council's response was unanimous. New protocols were established, old prejudices were addressed, and the foundations were laid for a truly equal partnership between humanity and the Coalition species. The HSS Dauntless remained in Coalition space, no longer hiding its capabilities but serving as a symbol of the changes it had helped bring about. Its presence reminded everyone that appearances could be deceiving, and that wisdom often came disguised as simplicity. In the years that followed, the story of humanity's grand deception became legend throughout Coalition space. It was taught in diplomatic academies, studied in military schools, and remembered whenever a new species sought membership in the galactic community. And Captain Park's words became a motto repeated across the stars. "Judge not by the vessel's hull, but by the spirit of those within." The age of deception had ended, but the age of understanding had just begun. The Dauntless and its crew had changed the course of galactic history not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the simple wisdom of knowing when to appear weak and when to reveal their strength. In doing so, they had taught the Coalition a lesson it would never forget. True power often lies hidden beneath the simplest facade.